All right, buckle up, everyone, because today we're diving into something pretty wild, uh, digital consciousness transfer.
Ooh, yeah, that's one that always gets people thinking.
It really does. And, it might sound like pure sci-fi, but the research we're looking at today, digital consciousness transfer prospects, challenges, and implications for the future of humanity, takes this concept seriously.
Yeah, it really digs into the nitty-gritty, the science, the tech, the ethics even.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So get ready because today we're going to break it all down for you, the possibilities, the challenges, and maybe even some of the philosophical head scratchers this whole thing brings up.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, so first things first, what exactly are we talking about when we say digital consciousness transfer?
Well, it's basically the idea of transferring a person's entire consciousness, everything that make them their thoughts, feelings, memories, the whole shebang from their brain into a digital format.
So like a digital backup of your mind?
Yeah, you could think of it that way, kind of like creating a blueprint of your entire mind with all its complexities and nuances.
Whoa, okay, now that's a pretty mind-blowing concept. I mean, is that even something that's remotely possible with our current technology?
Well, it is a massive undertaking, no doubt about it, but the research actually highlights how advancements in fields like computing, artificial intelligence, and brain imaging, particularly this field called connectomics, are making this idea more than just a fantasy.
Connectomics, what's that all about?
It's basically focused on mapping the intricate network of connections in the brain, all those billions of neurons and synapses that make up who we are.
So like a wiring diagram of your thoughts and memories.
Exactly. It's like trying to create a detailed map of the brain's circuitry.
Okay, but even if we could map the entire brain, how would we even begin to transfer all that information into a digital format?
That's where things get really tricky. The paper points out that a complete scan of the human brain is still beyond our reach.
Right, it's like trying to download the entire internet onto a floppy disk.
Yeah, kind of. But the research does suggest that ongoing advancements, particularly in computing power and AI, are steadily chipping away at these technical obstacles.
So are we saying that we could potentially see digital consciousness transfer becoming a reality in the near future?
Well, that's where the debate gets really interesting. The research presents two contrasting viewpoints, the optimistic view and the skeptical view.
Okay, so let's start with the optimists. What are they saying?
The optimists believe that with the rapid pace of technological advancement, digital consciousness transfer could become a reality within our lifetimes even.
Wow, within our lifetimes, that's pretty incredible. What makes them so confident?
Well, they point to things like brain-computer interfaces where digital systems can interact directly with the brain, and even large-scale brain simulations as evidence that we're moving in the right direction.
So we could be talking about merging our minds with machines in the not-so-distant future.
It's a possibility that's definitely on the table.
Okay, but what about the skeptics? What are their concerns?
The skeptics argue that the sheer complexity of the human brain and the mystery of consciousness itself might mean that fully replicating it digitally could be forever out of reach.
Yeah, I can see where they're coming from. We're not just talking about copying data here. We're talking about capturing the essence of what it means to be human, to experience the world subjectively.
Exactly, and that brings us to this concept called the hard problem of consciousness, which basically asks, how can physical processes in the brain create subjective experiences, like the feeling of joy or the experience of seeing a sunset?
That's a deep one.
It really is. Some argue that these subjective experiences might be inherently non-computable, meaning that no matter how advanced our technology gets, we might never be able to fully replicate them in a digital format.
So even if we could create a perfect digital copy of our brain, it might not actually feel like anything to be that digital copy.
That's a possibility that we have to consider. Would it truly be you with all your thoughts, feelings, and experiences intact? Or would it be something different, something that might resemble you, but lack that essential spark of subjective consciousness?
Whoa, that's a mind-bending thought. It makes you wonder if there's something unique about our biological brains that gives rise to consciousness, something that might be impossible to replicate in a digital world.
That's a question that scientists and philosophers are still grappling with, but the research does suggest that even if full consciousness transfer remains elusive, we might see a future where partial digitization becomes a reality.
Okay, so what would that look like, partial digitization?
Well, think about things like enhanced cognitive abilities,
Yeah.
backed up memories, or even digital avatars that could interact with the world long after our physical bodies are gone.
So it's not necessarily an all or nothing proposition. We could see a gradual merging of our minds with technology leading to all sorts of possibilities.
Exactly. It's a spectrum of possibilities, and it's definitely something that raises a whole bunch of ethical questions.
You're right about that. But before we dive into the ethical implications, I think it's time for a quick break. So while we take a moment for you to process all this incredible information, think about what aspect of digital consciousness is catching your attention the most. What questions are popping into your mind? Hold on to those thoughts because when we come back, we'll be exploring the ethical dilemmas of this mind-boggling technology. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, everyone. So before the break, we were talking about the possibility of partial digitization and how that could lead to some pretty significant ethical challenges.
Yeah, I mean, even if we just start with something like enhanced cognitive abilities or backing up our memories, that raises a whole bunch of questions about identity, privacy, and even the nature of reality.
Yeah, exactly. And the research paper we're discussing really delves into those questions. It's not just about the technology itself. It's about how this technology could fundamentally change what it means to be human.
Right. It's like we're on the verge of a whole new era, one where the lines between the physical world and the digital world start to blur in ways we never could have imagined.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Like, if we could back up our memories, what would that mean for our sense of self? Would we still be the same person if our memories existed outside of our physical bodies?
And what about our relationships with other people? Would those relationships change if part of us existed in a digital realm?
These are questions that we're just beginning to grapple with, and the research emphasizes that there are no easy answers.
Yeah, it's definitely uncharted territory. And it's not just about our individual lives either. This
Mhm.
technology could have a massive impact on society as a whole.
Absolutely. The paper talks about how digital consciousness could potentially revolutionize everything from our economic systems to our political structures.
Okay, so let's talk about the economy for a second. How could digital consciousness affect the way we work and live?
Well, imagine a world where people could potentially live for centuries in digital form. Retirement would become a thing of the past, and traditional career paths might completely disappear.
Wow. Yeah, that would definitely shake things up. We'd need to come up with entirely new economic models to account for a workforce that could theoretically work for generations.
Right, and what about things like healthcare and education? Would we need to rethink those systems as well?
It's like everything we know about how society functions would need to be reevaluated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then there are the political implications to consider.
Right. How do you govern a society where people could have vastly extended lifespans and potentially even enhanced cognitive abilities thanks to digital consciousness?
It's a question that raises all sorts of issues about political power representation
Mm.
and even the definition of citizenship. Would digital minds have the same rights and privileges as biological humans? Would they be able to vote, hold office? It's really a whole new ballgame.
Yeah, we're talking about a potential paradigm shift, not just in technology, but in the very fabric of society itself.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, but the research makes it clear that these are conversations we need to start having now before this technology becomes even more advanced.
Absolutely. We need to be thinking about the potential benefits and the potential risks in figuring out how we can ensure that this technology is developed and used responsibly.
And it's not just up to scientists and policymakers either. We need a global conversation that involves philosophers, ethicists, and really everyone in society to figure out how we want to navigate this uncharted territory.
You're right. It's a collective responsibility, and the stakes are incredibly high. The decisions we make now could have far-reaching implications for the future of consciousness itself.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive,
Hmm.
I want to encourage you to keep thinking about all of this. What are your biggest concerns about digital consciousness? What are you most excited about? And what do you think we need to do as a society to prepare for this potential future?
These are big questions, but they're questions that we need to start asking ourselves now. So keep those thoughts in mind as we delve into the philosophical implications of digital consciousness in our final segment. Welcome back, everyone. It's time for the final part of our deep dive into digital consciousness, and things are about to get really philosophical.
Yeah, we're going to tackle the big questions about what it means to be human in a world where minds could exist beyond our physical bodies.
Okay, so let's dive right in. One of the biggest questions this whole topic raises is about the self. If we could create a digital copy of our mind, would there be two of us then?
That's a question that's been debated for centuries. What makes you you over time? Your physical body, your memories, your experiences. If we transfer your consciousness to a digital format, Is that a continuation of the same self, or does a new self emerge?
Right. It's almost like that ship of Theseus paradox. If
Uh-huh.
you replace all the parts of a ship over time, is it still the same ship? Here, we're talking about replacing the biological parts of our minds with digital ones.
Exactly. It's a great analogy. And the research suggests there might not be a simple answer. Could be a spectrum of continuity.
Yeah.
Maybe the digital copy starts as a near-perfect replica, but as it has new experiences in the digital world, it gradually diverges from the original.
So it becomes something distinct, a new self with its own unique identity.
Exactly. It really challenges our traditional notions of individuality and lineage. Imagine a future where people have multiple digital descendants branching off and evolving in different directions.
Whoa, a digital family tree of consciousness.
It's a mind-boggling concept. It really makes you think about what identity even means in a digital age.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about the self, but what about consciousness itself?
Yeah.
Can we really replicate something so subjective, so deeply personal in a digital format?
That's where the hard problem of consciousness comes up again. You know how we still don't fully understand how consciousness arises from the physical matter of our brains?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest mysteries in science.
Right. Well, some philosophers argue that consciousness is an emergent property of the brain. It arises from the complex interactions of neurons, but it might not be reducible to those interactions.
So even if we could map every neuron and connection in the brain, there might be something intangible, something we can't quite capture in digital code that's essential for consciousness.
Exactly. It's like how water has properties that individual hydrogen and oxygen atoms don't have on their own.
So a digital copy of your brain might be able to mimic your behavior and thought patterns, but it might lack that subjective experience.
It might be like a philosophical zombie acting like you, but not truly feeling anything.
Okay, now that is a creepy thought. It raises some serious ethical questions. If we create digital beings that are indistinguishable from us, but maybe aren't truly conscious, how should we treat them?
That's a huge question. And the research really emphasizes the need for a lot more discussion and reflection on these ethical issues.
Yeah.
As this technology advances, we need to figure out where we draw the line between human and digital and what rights and responsibilities come with each.
It's like we're entering a whole new realm of ethical considerations.
Absolutely. And we need to be prepared to have some tough conversations about what it means to be human in a world where the boundaries between the physical and digital are becoming increasingly blurred.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the science of brain mapping to the ethical dilemmas of digital minds and the philosophical questions about consciousness itself.
It's been quite a journey, and I think we've just scratched the surface of this incredible topic.
Exactly. There's so much more to explore and so many questions still to be answered.
But one thing's for sure, this is a conversation that's not going away anytime soon.
So keep those minds open, keep asking questions, and keep exploring all the possibilities and challenges that this technology presents.
Because the future of consciousness is something that we'll all be shaping together.
And that's a wrap on this deep dive into digital consciousness. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep diving deep.